one. Oh.
Get all the news and controversy of the NFL right here on the Blitz Zone with your hosts, Eric Rosen and Jamie Hickson, as they discuss the hot topics concerning your favorite players and team, the winners, the losers, the big plays, and the big hits from around the league. Right here, only on the Blitz Zone.
Ooh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Friday, October 27th, 2017. It's that spooky time of the hour for your favorite NFL and college football program. Welcome to a scary Week 8 edition of the Blitz Zone. Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Rosen, and I'm coming to you live from the studios of CTV in Staten Island, New York, on this awesome Halloween weekend coming up. And we have a lot to get into. And before we get into anything, I got to introduce somebody. The man of the hour. The person who's been with me since the very beginning of this show, who's just walking and strutting his way into the studio right now like a zombie. From The Walking Dead, Jamie Hickson. That's translation for I want brains.
Actually, that's translation for, man, I am just bored. You know why I'm so bored? Because I was watching that Dolphins versus Ravens game last night. That was just pitiful.
40-0. Like, there are a lot of words that we can describe it. Yeah, pathetic, pitiful, boring, tiresome.
This just goes to show you how infuriated Dolphins fans are right now. But at the same time, there's a little, there's something serious to be discussed about this game. And that's the fact that Joe Flacco got really hammered.
Oh, yes. It was an unnecessary...
And now is in concussion protocol.
Yeah, in the first half, Kiko Alonso, this was the player who was originally with the Philadelphia Eagles. Then he was traded to... He actually was with Buffalo. Then he went to Philadelphia. Now he's with Miami. Mm-hmm. And he had an unnecessary hit on Joe Flacco in the first half that pretty much took him out of the game. It was an unfortunate. And he got flagged for unnecessary roughness.
Yep.
And deservedly so for it. And it was just a nasty. His hit was so hard, the helmet literally came off. And you could tell from the instant Flacco was hit, he was wobbly. He couldn't even get onto his feet without some help.
All the more reason why they really have to crack down on some of the physicality of the game. Not to say that they should cut down on any overly hard hits, but shots to the head have got to be done. Shots to the head have got to be taken out of the game completely, because if we're going to keep on having situations like what Flacco went through last night, then we know that the sport is in trouble, as if the game is in trouble as is. What with all of the mounting concussions that are taking place in the game and the civil unrest that's going on in and out of the game, there's a reason why the ratings in the game have significantly gone down. And hits to the head is one of the reasons.
I don't know if they have significantly gone down, but I know the hits are definitely, it's a lot. It's getting faster and faster in these games.
It also reiterates the theory that maybe the techniques on how to tackle have gone a little overboard. Everybody wants to see the big hit on ESPN SportsCenter instead of just seeing guys wrap their arms around a guy and not necessarily drive him headfirst to the ground, but just bring him down, or maybe just go for a simple ankle tackle. Whatever happened to those days?
But if you have those ankles, then you're going to risk the increase of ACL injuries.
And here's another thing. I see a lot of defenders going more for the ball, trying to strip the ball away than making an actual tackle. And that's cost defenses a lot of yardage recently. Is there anything that can be done to teach these guys to go less for the ball and go more for making a tackle? That way they won't have to lose any more yardage or give up yardage.
A defender's primary objective is to make sure that the opposing offense doesn't get a touchdown, does not get any points whatsoever. If it means by tackling, if it means by trying to strip the opposing player, whether it be the running back, receiver, or the quarterback of the ball, or trying to sack the quarterback and put pressure on him into making a mistake or getting called for intentional grounding. It depends on the team. Every team is different the way they conduct hits. No one team is the same, especially the way they line, the way they are from the start of scrimmage. There's sometimes teams that get flagged for stupid penalties like offsides that you always get infuriated by, giving the offense basically free range to make any play afterwards. So, yeah, there are some ways maybe that some of these hits can be curbed. But then you're going to have guys like James Harrison and other people come out of where we're saying, well, what are you trying to, make this into touch football? You might.
Sometimes I wonder if the game would be better off as touch football or maybe flag football, because
you would lose people right away.
They would lose people, but at the same time, we wouldn't be losing any lives either. I mean, think of all the retired players that have struggled so mightily because of their health situations, and the others who took their own lives because they just couldn't take the depression or the constant headaches anymore.
Well, if you guys want to see even more, there's the movie, of course, Concussion, starring Will Smith, who played the Nigerian doctor, Dr. Bennett Omalu, who was the very first person back in the early 2000s to discover CTE and try to publish it in medical journal, especially in New England Journal of Medicine. And the NFL tried every which way to silence his discovery. And that's when Tagovailoa actually was let go from the league at that time, and they brought in Commissioner Goodell.
Yeah, Tagovailoa had actually retired from the game. So the owners decided to bring in Roger Goodell, but ever since he got elected, he has been nothing but a lightning rod for criticism, not just from the players, but from fans as well.
But the owners still trust him, especially with the amount of revenue he's brought into the league. At the same time, he's had issues like domestic violence. He's had the social issues that have been taking place on the field, as we know, which, by the way, they actually concluded their studies, their last talk that they had, and they want to put money towards social justice programs and other causes and sort of make a month out of it like they do with Cancer Awareness Month, which is right now in October. We're getting towards the end of this month. And what they're going to also – and this week, in fact, the players are going to be wearing cleats with Cleats for Causes, which was started actually, I think, a year or two ago, where the players will write on their cleats what they stand for.
Yep.
Some for certain diseases or cancers or disabilities, or for domestic violence, or for social justice. It depends on what the player's going to do, but look out throughout the league where players are going to be writing stuff on their cleats and having specialized cleats this weekend. And the money actually will be they'll donate the cleats, and the money will go towards these causes. So I think it's really good that they do that. And speaking of money being made, J.J. Watt made a whopping $37 million in his effort to help the people of Houston through Hurricane Harvey. And I feel bad for this guy. He's already done for the year with yet another injury ending his season, but this guy earns an A+ in sportsmanship and being just a great human being off the field.
And he's also one of the more charismatic and marketable guys that the league has. Notice all of the spots that he's done, not just for product placement, but also for the league itself. He's become basically the defensive version of Peyton Manning for the game. He's become a real TV magnet.
And he just revealed today how he's going to divide that money. $31.5 million is going to be divided through 4 organizations: AmeriCare, Feeding America, SBP, and Save the Children in the next 18 to 24 months to help rebuild homes, restore child care centers, provide food, and address health needs by people affected by Hurricane Harvey. The remaining $7 million is going to be put through his foundation to help assess, analyze any relief efforts. So right there, that truly is a great man. And this was a guy who had to deliver pizzas when he was in college to pay for his tuition.
Yep.
to get to be at Wisconsin.
Because he was never offered a scholarship coming out of high school. Yet his home state school was the only major university to give him a chance.
And look where he is now.
Mm-hmm.
Just an outstanding player and an outstanding human being. So we salute you at the Blitz, J.J. Watt.
Yep.
But I do not salute what Marshawn Lynch did last Thursday. You know, the Raiders ended their 4-game losing streak against the Chiefs 31-30. But what I don't like, and I don't ever condone any player, and I think you and I would agree with this, never ever put your hands on a referee or an official whatsoever. And he's ejected for this week's game against Houston.
Mm-hmm. By the way, did you hear about what happened with Marshawn after the game? He was riding the subway in the Oakland area, and he was caught on social media joking around with fans inside the train. He was actually playing pranks on some of the riders.
Yeah, he was punking some people, I think.
And he did the same thing over at a restaurant in the Oakland area as well.
Yeah, it was a sandwich shop. Yeah, that's right, this past week. But it's not funny, honestly. This week, you should take this week to reflect on the fact that I did something incredibly stupid and boneheaded, and never again should I ever put my hands on a ref. Even if it was in the heat of the moment when Marcus Peters was having a situation with the quarterback, Derek Carr, but still, it does not excuse you from, it doesn't give you the right to put your hands on a referee at all. Malik Hooker, by the way, the rookie cornerback who came into the league playing for Indianapolis, unfortunately, he's out for the year. He tore his MCL and ACL this past week, and they're 27-0 drubbing against the Jaguars.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of injuries, Aaron Rodgers underwent surgery recently because, as you know, he wound up breaking his collarbone in the Vikings game. He had to have steel rods to keep the collarbone in place.
13 of them.
13
stitches.
13 unlucky steel rods to keep the collarbone in place. In all likelihood, he's going to be gone for the rest of the year.
Actually, no, 13 stitches. But still, the fact that he has to have these rods and all that, that's not good there. Especially for what he's basically, without him, the Packers implode. They're not the same team. And also, not only did he get injured, Joe Thomas, who 11-time Pro Bowler, who's been 11 years on the team with the Cleveland Browns, a 10-time Pro Bowler, who has never missed a single snap, tore his left triceps, done for the year and possibly his career.
This is a guy who basically played well over 10,000 snaps in a row since his rookie season. And now for him, as if things have not gone any worse for the Browns, now their best player, and yes, Joe Thomas, even though he is an offensive lineman, he is their best player.
Yes.
Now he has to be gone for the rest of the season.
Good luck.
Who takes his spot to protect the blind side of fill in the blank at quarterback?
They got a rookie right now coming in. It doesn't really matter because whoever you put in, whatever team that they play, especially this Sunday in jolly old London, they're going to probably they got the Vikings, so Everson Griffin's going to be lined up to the left side. He's going to get like 3 sacks easily. He already has 9 sacks on the year. Griffin could be a defensive player of the year, so the Vikings are going to have a field day, whoever's protecting the blind side. And an old friend, Dwight Freeney.
Yep, Dwight Freeney, a local product who attended Syracuse, is back in the NFL after signing with the Seahawks for the rest of the year.
Yep, he's taking over for Cliff Averill, who's on injured reserve. And speaking of another injured player, Carson Palmer underwent surgery after the injury he sustained in the Arizona Cardinals' loss this past week, drubbing to the Rams 33-0.
Yep, and now that means Drew Stanton is going to have to be the quarterback.
Yikes. And as we know, Colin Kaepernick was actually invited to the next owners' meeting with the players.
Pretty ironic considering he's suing the league for collusion.
So he is actually going to attend. He accepted the invitation. He is going to be there to speak this coming week. So when we find out what happens, we'll definitely report more on that. Now, let's talk about the week. That was Week 7 in the NFL, Monday night. Yeah, Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles took on the Redskins in a good old-fashioned NFC East showdown. And Carson Wentz, what a year.
What a year he's had, and also what a victory he led his Eagles to. This was probably the first I'd say, really tough test that he's had this season, having to go up against the Redskins this past Monday night, and he responded so well. 4 touchdown passes. Not only that, but he looked so quick carrying the ball by himself just to keep plays alive.
68 yards he ran for.
68 yards rushing in this game. I
Or
kept
63,
telling
sorry.
people Carson Wentz was going to be the next great quarterback prospect coming out of North Dakota State. And boy, are the Eagles lucky to have him.
But here's the problem. They lost their 9-time Pro Bowler, Jason Peters, yet another injury, ACL and MCL tear. He's done for year. And Jordan Hicks, a ruptured Achilles tendon on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Eagles could be hurt because of the loss of Jason
without
Peters?
question. Now they're going to have to find somebody to replace Peters.
And how about the Falcons? Speaking of getting hurt this week, Tom Brady hurt them with 2 touchdown passes, including a shovel pass to Brandon Cooks, in which he was able to manipulate himself to the left side and control the ball, and a 2-yarder to James White. James White is a nightmare for Falcon fans because he was the guy who got the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 51 in overtime. And the Falcons lost 23-7. This was the first time that the Patriots didn't give up over 300 yards to the opposing quarterback. Every game up until this point, their defense gave up over 300 yards, an NFL record.
I think the Patriots right now are starting to hit their stride, which is saying a lot considering that they're coming off their 5th title. But at the same time, look at the people that they lost during the offseason. I mean, Julian Edelman wound up suffering a major injury, and he's gone for the year. Not only that, but they've had to have a revolving door at the running back position and at receiver position. Yet somehow the Patriots look like they have not missed a beat. And also, their defense has been extremely underrated in this run.
It was poetry in motion just to watch Tom Brady. He's a symphony conductor.
I think now we can say that the Patriots are the best team in the AFC right now.
They're definitely up there for sure. This is a team that looks like they're going to be defending again. Now, how about Latavius Murray and the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Ravens in the home of Super Bowl 52? And Latavius Murray had one of his best performances, including a 23-yard rushing touchdown, which he cut to one side and made it 18-6 at one point. The Ravens lost to the Vikings 24-16. In fact, there was 9 combined field goals by both teams, a NFL record.
One side note with the Vikings is that it's looking more and more like Teddy Bridgewater might be coming back from that really horrific knee injury that he suffered last year. But this begs the question. The Vikings have played well this year.
With Case
Even
Keenum.
with Case Keenum at quarterback. Do they keep on going with Keenum, or do they bring in the better player at quarterback, which is Bridgewater?
I think they got to ease Bridgewater, and especially with the injury he sustained right now. They're not going to have him this week, especially in London, because they're playing on a soccer field. And the turf is not suitable for a guy like Bridgewater who's had to overcome a horrific injury like that. And the fact is, they have another week. They have a bye week coming up in week 9. So week 10, look out to see if we possibly might have Teddy Bridgewater in there. Now, speaking of London, in Twickenham Stadium, which will be hosting the Vikings and Browns, hosted the Cardinals and the Rams, and it was a one-sided affair where the Rams shoved it down the Cardinals' throat to the tune of a 33-0 game. Carson Palmer, unfortunately, got hit really bad by Alec Ogletree with about 5:48 remaining in the first half, and now has to sit out 8 weeks.
Which means his regular season is basically done.
And Drew Stanton has to be the quarterback. Todd Gurley had a great 106-yard performance on the ground. Jared Goff really let this threw a touchdown threw for another touchdown and ran on the ground, especially on an awesome keeper that he had himself from 9 yards from the zone. And Greg Zuerlein's 4 field goals. Unbelievable. The Rams are scoring points in bunches. They're the best team in the league in terms of scoring points per game.
Yeah, they're definitely the highest scoring team in the league. As far as best in the league, right now I would say New England because they're playing the best overall. But St. Louis is really scoring
You mean
points
Los
in
Angeles?
bunches. Oh, brother.
I know.
L.A., I should say. The L.A. Rams are scoring points in bunches. I would like to see what they do against a tougher opponent. Say, maybe their division rivals, the Seahawks, and they have one more meeting with them down the road.
Here's a crazy game right here. Bucks Bills. The Buccaneers are down 17-6 at one point in this game. Then they get the first lead of the game with a 12-yard touchdown from Jameis Winston to Mike Evans about 3:14. Then the Bills get the ball, and for the first time, LaShawn McCoy not only had his first touchdown of the season on the ground, but he had his second one, tying the game on a 7-yard run to make it 27-all with 2:28 remaining. So the Bucks get the ball back. It's their turn. And what happens? Tre'Davious White forces and recovers a fumble off of Jameis Winston, sets up Stephen Hauchka, the former Seahawk, for the game-winning 30-yard field goal with about 14 seconds left, and the Bills defeat the Buccaneers 30-27.
Tampa's been a major disappointment this year. A lot of people expected things from them, but they've just let down so badly defensively that it's hard to trust them in a big spot anymore.
And the Bills are one of a few teams in this year that are a Cinderella story, along with the Rams and even the Jaguars. And speaking of the Jaguars, another drubbing, 27-0 on the Indianapolis Colts. And guess what? Blake Bortles didn't turn the ball over. He had a season high, 330 yards and a touchdown. And TJ Yeldon came out with a 58-yard run. And even Chris Ivory capped the first drive with a 5-yard nifty with a 1-yard run, and then led to a 5-yard pass to Mercedes Lewis. What's happened to the Jaguars? Am I in the twilight zone?
What's happened with the Jaguars is that they're playing better. They're playing better because Leonard Fournette has given them another dimension in the offense, but they need to be more consistent. This season, it's been 1 win, 1 loss, and on and on. They need to put together a really consistent winning streak if they want to be taken seriously this year as a playoff team.
I think what I like about this year's Jaguars team, the defense has really improved. They're a much more physical defense than we've seen in years past. They're getting after the quarterback. This was the second game in which they had 10 sacks. They had that week 1 against Houston, and the fact that they're doing that with Calais Campbell, probably the best offseason signing, and the accountability that Coughlin has brought to the front office, that's huge right there.
Yeah.
And the Colts are imploding. And you could say this, the only good thing about that game was their punter, who was able to keep 4 inside 20 yards. Other than that, it was a colossal disaster. Andrew Luck had yet another setback. Who knows if we're even going to see him in December, maybe.
Oh, bro. If this is true, then consider their season done. I mean, they're dead last in the division anyway, and it's painfully obvious they're just not the same without Luck in there.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the Packers are not the same without Rodgers. There are just some players who don't function well when their main guy is not there, and the Colts are one of those teams. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of the Bears, they didn't win with offense. Very little. In fact, it was 4 of 7 for Trubisky for 100 yards. And the only reason they beat the Panthers 17-3 was Eddie Jackson, the 4th-round rookie out of Alabama, had 2 defensive touchdowns of 75-plus yards. He had a 75-yard fumble recovery off of Curtis Samuel that he was able to get to the left side in the end zone. Then a 76-yard pick-6 off of Cam Newton. And the Bears won. He's the first Bear to do it since Fred Evans in 1948 to have these type of touchdowns. And the first player in the NFL since Zach Brown in 2012 from the Titans. So unbelievable. And did you see the attitude that Cam Newton had this past week when he walked away from a press?
When he walked away from the press conference without answering a question? Yeah, I saw it. This only begs the question. Are we going to be seeing less of Cam Newton taking the snaps from under center? Are we even going to be seeing him much at all? Because it seems like this franchise is taking a little bit more of a decline with him in there.
In his defense, if there's any way to defend him, because I don't defend that kind of attitude, you're supposed to be a professional football player, act like a professional at all times, even in the face of adversity, not walk off like a petulant child. But you have to see, this team lost Greg Olsen, who was a mainstay at tight end. He's their big offensive player. So that's a huge loss right there from early in the season. And Ryan Khalil, or the other Khalil, Matt Khalil, who they signed for an unjustifiable amount of money, because it's not justified whatsoever. Not having him there in the field healthy, and just, it was painful the way they carried the ball. They need to really work on some things. And Luke Kuechly, he's still up and down. So how about this?
By the way, as far as that press conference is concerned, the Panthers actually tried to spin doctor the whole thing, saying that he got the cue from the media relations guy to cut the interview off because time was out.
Oh, that's a bunch of crap right there. I'm sorry. That was him acting like a petulant child in the body of a 25-year-old. Sometimes I forget his age, but still.
He's 28, actually.
A 28-year-old. You're supposed to be a professional on and off the field. You're supposed to win like a man and lose like a man, not be a baby about it. I'm sorry, Cam, if you don't like that, that's too bad. This is what you signed up for. You got to take your lickings at times. That's just how the cookie crumbles. Now, the Saints, look what they've done. They've lost their first two. Now they've won 4 straight games, and they have the first over 500 record since 2013.
Yeah.
And Drew Brees ran for a touchdown with 4:55 left on a 1-yard sneak to keep it a 2-score game, and they beat the Packers 26-17.
Well, it would be easy to say that the game would be different if Aaron Rodgers were in there, but we got to call a spade here. Drew Brees is now 38 years old, and yet he's still making plays as if he were 10 years younger. He is the reason why the Saints are even slightly relevant.
I think the defense, too. You've seen a lot of improvements with this defense, especially with Gary and Conley and that front seven. And Kenny Vaccaro had a pick off of Hundley. Hundley was pitiful. 12 of 25, and get your barf bag ready, 87 yards.
Oh, brother.
Like, that's how pitiful he was. And Will Lutz had 2 second-half field goals for New Orleans. This Packers team with Brett Hundley, there is a guy named CK, not Calvin Klein, all right? He's out there. I think you should sign him.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Brett Hundley is a quarterback who came out of UCLA, not necessarily highly touted, but they did have a couple of expectations for him. But ever since he became the starter, he's looked lost trying to run an offense.
Or, you know what, do what Logan Thomas did. When he realized he wasn't a quarterback anymore in the league, he became tight end. He actually helped the Bills win this past week with a touchdown. So, I'm just saying, Brett, there are options. So get
Plus, here's another example. The quarterback that used to be at Ohio State,
Terrell Pryor,
he's now a successful receiver.
And how about the other quarterback that came out of Ohio State? He's a receiver for Houston. So I'm just saying,
Braxton Miller.
Yep.
And of course, Cordell Stewart, who became Slash with the Steelers.
Exactly. See, there are options. You can do other things besides being a quarterback. I know it's hard for you. Speaking of hard for people to watch, the Titans-Browns game was an eyesore to watch.
Yeah. Speaking of bored, granted, it was a win for the Titans, but quite frankly, this was just brutal.
12-9, all field goals.
Where was the offense in this game? I mean, yeah, you want to take your points any way you can, but at the same time, try and convert in the red zone, please. Try and convert touchdowns in the red zone more often than field goals.
And here's the crazy part. The Titans were leading 9-6, and Zane Gonzalez, the place kicker for the Browns, gets the game-tying 54-yarder in regulation at the end of regulation to force overtime. It was Ryan Suckup who got his 4th field goal of the game, a 47-yarder with about 1:55 left. Titans beat the Browns 12-9. The Browns are still a pitiful excuse of a team, and 1-22 in 2 years with Hugh Jackson.
What must this young generation of Browns fans be thinking?
Throwing up uncontrollably.
Because there's a much older generation of Browns fans that remembers the good old days.
The cardiac kids.
You can even go back even further than that, when they were in the old All-American Football Conference.
Jim Brown.
Yep. They won all 4 of the All-American Football Conference championships. Then when they graduated to the NFL, they dominated in the 50s and the first half of the 60s, and also for a huge chunk of the 80s. They went to 3 AFC championship games, but I think things really started to go south for that franchise the first time that they ceased from playing the game for 2 years.
1996.
3 years, I should say. And then when the franchise came back, that's when things started getting really, really bad.
And Art Modell became the biggest villain in Cleveland history when he moved the team, without them even realizing it, to Baltimore, because Baltimore no longer had the Colts when they went to Indianapolis. So Art saw an opportunity, people still vilify him even to in his deathbed. They vilify him in Cleveland.
You know, it's not like the Browns never had any players. I mean, you mentioned Brown. There was also Otto Graham and Brian Sipe and Gary Collins and Ozzie Newsome, who they call the Wizard of Oz. And after he retired, he actually joined the franchise that's now in Baltimore and became their general manager. He's been a genius with that franchise.
It's just, I think what's really the result of this, the amount of head coaches they've had to have, 28 quarterbacks since they came back to the league. They change quarterbacks more than we change draws.
Yep.
That's really
And
sad.
look at what's going on with the Browns now. 1-15 last year, 0-7 this year. There's a strong possibility they could go maybe 1-31 or 2-30 these last 2 seasons.
And it begs the question, when will it be enough for this front office to keep Hugh Jackson on board? But at the same time, when you're changing so many coordinators year after year after year, and you have to change playbooks, then this is the result that you're seeing on the field because, unfortunately, with teams, they have to have continuity. Well, not it's unfortunate. They have to have a level of consistency with the playbook. When you change from one coordinator to another, having to learn, it's like an actor when they have rewrites and new scripts that they have to learn every single minute.
You know who's been the longest running head coach on the Browns ever since they made their return in 1999?
Oh, please don't tell me.
Romeo Crennel. You know how long he lasted? Barely 4 years.
I was going to say 2, but
Everyone else has lasted 1, 2, barely 2.5. Could it be that maybe the league should probably step in and save that franchise from any more incompetence?
And all the first-round players they have, most of them are gone.
Yeah.
The only one maybe left is Joe Thomas, and he just got injured for the year. It's a colossal screw-up of epic proportions in this front office. And Denny and Haslam, their owner, who bought the team for $1 billion, Denny or Henny, whatever your name
Jimmy
is.
Haslam.
Jimmy
I think you're
Haslam,
talking about.
who's a lifelong Steelers fan. That's another.
That's the other problem. The Browns are being run by a Steelers fan.
Maybe that's why they suck.
I'm thinking it's time for the Browns to get new ownership. What would you say to the idea of maybe
More Cuban.
Well, that would probably revolutionize the sport right there. But what about someone with some local ties to not just the city of Cleveland, but to the entire state of Ohio?
I'm thinking a king, right?
Yeah.
A certain king on the Cavaliers when he no longer is playing in a certain other sport where he has a consortium of owners, sort of like what Magic Johnson did with the Dodgers. I see where you're going with this.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be bad at all because LeBron helped revitalize Cleveland when he came back and won an NBA title. So maybe if he became an owner in the press box,
Yeah.
and he even